Imagine carrying entire generations inside you, but not knowing who you really are. Today, you will accompany Aina on her journey to rediscover lost roots and discover new courage. Get ready. We will experience fear, gratitude, empathy, and the power to renew our identity. Aina grew up in Boston, the daughter of Colombian immigrants. She learned English before she knew how to conjugate verbs in Spanish. Still, she felt empty. Her heritage seemed like an invisible but distant magnet dot at 27. She graduated in marketing, opened her own digital agency, and lived alone in a minimalist apartment. Everything worked except for the feeling of belonging. One night, while looking through family photos, Aina discovered an old album she had never seen, portraits of grandparents she had barely known, wearing traditional clothes and smiling at village parties. A fear rose in her chest. What if I never belong anywhere? The tears were almost silent, but deep. Her reflection in the mirror seemed to beg for answers. The next day, Aina booked a month-long vacation to Cartagena. She announced to the team, "I need to understand my roots so I can truly find myself." When she arrived, she felt the intense heat and the song of cicadas. Small street vendors offered arepas and passion fruit juice. Each aroma seemed to whisper, "You are part of this." At the hotel, Aina had opened the tourist guide when an elderly man approached her, perusing the text curiously and speaking quickly in Spanish. "Aren't you from here?" Surprised, she answered in her native language. "Yes, I am Colombian." He smiled with tears in his eyes. "Then come with me. I will show you where your grandparents danced for the last time." Aina felt a chill down her spine, a mixture of fear and hope. Following the man through the cobblestone streets, she heard stories of parties, struggles, and music that had lulled generations. Each step created cracks in the wall that isolated her identity. They arrived at an old house, the doors open. The man knocked and was greeted with warm hugs. They were distant cousins who recognized her as the missing granddaughter. The reunion was visceral, tears, laughter, and the smell of cinnamon coffee. Aina hugged each relative as if hugging a forgotten part of herself. That night, as she looked up at the stars in Cartagena, she felt for the first time that she belonged, not to a title or profession, but to a long lineage of stories, courage, and community. The next day, Aina explored the festival grounds of her childhood, now in ruins. Childhood memories surfaced, the street parties, the warmth of a close-knit family. She visited the local museum and was moved by images of colonizers, slaves, and abolitionists. Each painting reflected oppression and resistance echoes of her own ancestry. She feared that her professional achievements in Boston would pale in comparison to this profound cultural impact. The tension grew. Who am I, after all? She met a traditional weaver at a market. Her calloused hands wove colorful patterns that told stories of love and rebellion. Aina bought a piece of fabric, feeling its pulse. Back at her cousin's house, she wore the fabric as a shawl. Something broke and remade itself inside her. Gratitude invaded her, uniting past and present. However, a marginalized ancestor had been silenced for decades. A great-uncle had been exiled. Aina decided to follow him in the historical records. Seeking symbolic justice. In the municipal archive, she read letters in Old Spanish, official seals, and newspaper clippings. Each line increased the emotional tension. Pain, injustice, Courage. Great climax. Aina finds her great-uncle's last letter, asking the family for forgiveness for having failed to protect her. Tears bridged the gap between generations. She stood up, feeling a weight lift from her shoulders. A knot of empathy was released. She began to understand that heritage was not only about celebration, but also about reconciliation. She gathered her family in a courtyard. She told them about the find, and together they organized a ritual of ancestral forgiveness. They lit candles and sang old songs. The local community came together. Neighbors and even strangers who heard their stories repeated in the square. The celebration was visceral fears exorcised, alliances renewed. At the end, Aina gave a speech. Today I healed not only my roots, but those of all of us. Courage is recognizing our past and transforming it into hope. Back in Boston, Aina brought the shawl and the fabric to the bookstore cafe where she lent books to immigrants. She put them on display, ready to share her journey. She launched a series of lectures called Roots Revealed, inviting descendants of immigrants to tell their stories. Each session began with coffee and Colombian banana cake. The reaction was immediate. People from diverse backgrounds identified with each other and, together, created a community mural filled with symbols of their heritage. Aina produced a vlog in which she narrated her discovery, showing Cartagena, the archive, the ritual of forgiveness. The emotion in her voice generated instant empathy. The video reached peak engagement rates 20% above average. Comments flooded the page. I also lost my roots. Thank you for inspiring me. An NGO that supports refugees invited her to create workshops on cultural identity, teaching new immigrants how to rescue traditions. In the workshops, Aina touched on universal values: courage to face the unknown, a united community beyond differences, and hope for an inclusive future. Between tears and smiles, immigrants told their stories, selling vegetables in Brazil, fleeing wars, starting over on the Boston subway. At the end of each workshop, everyone wrote a letter to their future selves, a commitment to honor their roots and live authentically. This project gained national attention. TV networks highlighted the power of discovering who we are in order to be free. Aina's new identity was reflected in every face in the community. Pride, gratitude, and bonds forged in the fire of sharing. She concluded the phase by saying, "Finding my roots didn't keep me tied to the past. It freed me to be who I always wanted to be." Inspired, neighbors organized a Festival of Nations in the local park, where each culture was celebrated with food, dance, and music. Aina co-founded a national network of root rooms, spaces in libraries that offered books, resources, and interactive meetings about cultural heritage. Public schools adopted the program. Students researched their families and presented artistic projects. The result: pride and belonging in the classroom. Psychologists found a 30% drop in anxiety in participating neighborhoods, reinforcing that identity reconciliation strengthens mental health. Major brands supported with sponsorships, but under conditions of respect. Discussions about cultural appropriation and recognition of origins. Aina recorded a documentary for PBS, where her story intertwined with others of immigrants who transformed entire communities. The collective climax occurred when the Hall of Nations in Boston received its first international award for social innovation. There, Aina gave an emotional speech. We are all co-authors of the history of the world. When we embrace our roots, we give wings to hope. The repercussion expanded the movement to other cities. Chicago, Miami, and Los Angeles created their own Roots Rooms. Volunteers report that reclaiming roots generated greater civic engagement. Donations, participation in community councils, and environmental projects. In a special episode, Aina reunites with a long-lost cousin who helped her locate documents. Mutual gratitude seals bonds that had been broken until then. Transition to the final part. Aina looks out the window of her office at the top of a building, holding her Colombian shawl. She knows that the journey continues, but she has already left a legacy of courage and community. Aina returns to Cartagena to inaugurate a Roots Room in the old family home, now restored as a cultural center. The ceremony brings together the local community, immigrants from Boston, and Colombian authorities. Flags and drums celebrate national and personal reconciliation. On stage, Aina embraces the man who guided her the first time. You gave me back my origins. I give back to the world this space of belonging. The emotion is palpable. Tears of joy mix with applause that echoes off the ancient stone walls. Back in Boston, a mural with photos of immigrants and their descendants is painted on the facade of the Central Library, a symbol of the intertwining of stories. Aina feels that, at last, she has built an identity that is at once her roots and her courage to start. Over emotional climax, she finds her reflection in the mirror again, now serene and full of purpose. Her smile says, I am complete. From lost roots to courageous identity, Aina showed us that discovering who we are is an act of love, not only for ourselves but for the entire community. Courage, facing the unknown. Community, uniting cultures, and hope, building an authentic future. Aina holds a globe, looking directly at the camera, inviting you to look within yourself. Share in the comments the story that shaped your identity. Let's celebrate unexpected connections. If this journey touched your heart, like, share, and subscribe for more stories that inspire courage, freedom, and hope. Here, each story is a bridge to a more united world.